When you're a creator, you definitely get a lot of negativity that comes your way.
Trolls happen, but negativity doesn't get us anywhere.
Pinterest Creator Code is a step towards a better space. It's like an oath.
With this new standard, you're asking people to consider kindness.
When you share your joy, it sparks others to tap into theirs.
Let's call it vibes. Let's just call it vibes.
You'll own it.
I don't feel like there's any other social media platforms advocating for mental well-being like Pinterest.
When a platform is able to put boundaries, then you sort of know if you're in the right place.
A kind community definitely encourages me to be so much more expressive.
To inspire others is such a fantastic privilege.
The Creator Code is a recipe for a creator to be 100% themselves.
Welcome. It is crucial that we talk about our mental health. Many of us are still dealing with grief, depression, or anxiety, not only because of the pandemic of the past 2 years, but also due to the social issues we face on a daily basis, persistent racism, a polarized public, and the culture wars that come along with it. It is exhausting, and in order to show up for ourselves, we need to learn to lean on each other. So you know what? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for the second annual Poderistas Salud y Poder Roundtable discussion in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. As some of you might remember, last year, Poderistas hosted the first Latina-focused mental health roundtable, and it was truly incredible. Members of the community joined MSNBC's Alicia Menendez and leading Latina mental health professionals to talk through the unique ways that Latinas are impacted psychologically by the world around us. This year, Poderistas expanded the program to a month-long initiative, providing a robust digital program developed in conjunction with Latinx Therapy, the leading Latinx mental health digital destination. Through introspective storytelling, Latinas have been encouraged, of course, to participate in 30 days worth of activities with the ultimate goal of understanding how to strengthen our mental well-being and turn to community for support and utilize these tools year-round. Poderistas knows how important it is to uplift our salud y poder and one another, particularly after the collective trauma we've experienced. Today, we're going to do just that by supporting and lifting up our voices and one another. Special thanks to Pinterest for joining Poderistas this month in this very important initiative. Thank you very much. And you know what? Thank you for being present and joining in this important conversation. And most of all, thank you again for taking time for you and making your mental health a priority. Gracias.
Hola Poderistas, my name is Dr. Veroshka Williams, and I'm a clinical psychologist and also an astrologer. I am the founder of Sanación Infinita, a mental health and wellness clinic. And throughout this year and also throughout the pandemic, especially throughout the mental health pandemic, I've been deepening and also helping others deepen in their practice of connecting within and also managing anxiety. So today I'm gonna share with you a quick practice, a quick meditation practice that you can use for when you're not feeling so easy, when you're not feeling at peace, but also more importantly, you want to do this every day. You want to devote a quiet time to practice this so that you can diminish the frequency where you get anxiety attacks, anxiety episodes. So let's begin by just focusing in your body. You want to loosen up. I like to hum, como dirían las abuelas, like abuelas say, just sing to your heart. So loosen your body and start just saying a letter. Don't worry about the tone. Just feel it. Now you can just take some deep breaths, at least 3. You can focus your vision in front of you to the lower side of the floor. 2. And 3. Notice how already your body is way more relaxed. And you want to use this state to actually deepen this relaxation. Because with relaxation comes inner connection. So now you take another deep breath and you close your eyes. And while you're here, maintaining your eyes closed, you get back to the humming with whatever letter, whatever music even comes to mind. And then another deep breath. And now quickly imagine that you're putting both of your feet inside a bucket of really warm water. And automatically, all of your pensamientos and crazy thoughts go in that water. Just let them go. And you can express your alivio, your relief, by just saying, ah. So just continue breathing here while you experience this relief and the quiet that comes with a quieter mind. Also, you want to release all your emotional tension right now. And you can do this, achieve this, by opening your heart. Imagine that your heart, it's pulled by some strings that are in front of you. So it's opening, wide open. While you get your your strings pulled from the heart. You exhale longer and deeper. While you open, continue opening. While you open, you release emotional tension, all that emotional trauma, and just all that emotional weight that you don't need right now. So you have worked, and you can monitor this to make sure that you're experiencing peace, that you feel more grounded and connected. You have released your body. You can always go back to the humming for that. You have released your mental space with the hot water. You have released emotional tension with the strings that have opened your heart. And now you want to connect within with your spirit. So imagine that you're now connected from your crown, the crown on the top of your head, with a bright white light that navigates all through your spine until the last bottom bone of the spine. And that light goes straight down to the earth. Just breathe here. Experience joy, the joy that comes within by just connecting with who you are and your peace, your tranquility, your certainty. You got this. I got this. I am. You are. And let's continue being in this healthy and peaceful state. So you can start breathing a little more rhythmic to start awakening within. And when you're ready, you can just open your eyes, bring your palms together in front of you. Give thanks for this beautiful practice. You can do this repeatedly at home. You can do it really short or do it long, just however much you need. Many blessings to you, and would love to keep connecting with you. Peace, love, y bendiciones.
Gracias, Apoderistas, for gathering us together for this important conversation as we bring awareness to the mental state of Latinas today during Mental Health Awareness Month. You know, so many of us know that expression, it's okay to not be okay. Today, we're going to move beyond those phrases, talk about some of the unique challenges and barriers our communities face when it comes to getting culturally competent mental health care. Before we begin our conversation, I want to introduce you to our amazing group of experts who are here with us today. We have Adriana Alejandre, a licensed therapist, the founder of the bilingual Latinx Therapy podcast and Latinx Therapy, which seeks to destigmatize mental health among the Latinx community and to provide resources for culturally competent clinicians. Ayana Kelly is a military veteran, a human resources management professional with Trusted Health, and an active member of our very own Poderistas Power Squad. Dr. Lidiadna Garcia is a licensed psychologist, coach, and doctor. She hosts 2 podcasts, Beyond Resilience Life and Licensed Psychologist. Now what? Robin Moreno is a mommy, wife, proud Tex-Mexican, certified yoga coach, trained life coach, storyteller, and practicing curandera. It is great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. Adriana, I want to start with you because there are going to be elements of today's conversation as we talk about mental health, about the stigma around mental health that could be triggering to some who are listening or viewing today. What is your advice when those feelings come up throughout the course of this conversation?
Yeah, that's such a great question and point because conversations can be activating at any point. So I think it's really important for folks watching to keep in mind that you can pause at any time, you can walk away at any time, you can come back to this at any time. And in terms of regulating and helping our nervous system, which is what gets activated when we experience a trigger, deep breathing is really, really powerful. And sometimes I think we underestimate the power of our own breath. But even while we are taking a deep breath, so it can be inhaling through the nose very slowly for 3 seconds, holding in the throat area for 4 seconds, and exhaling out for 8 seconds or so. The longer, the better. But while we are doing this, we can also ask ourselves, what is the temperature of our breath like as it is entering our body and exiting our body? So I want to leave that little technique for everybody as they are watching, whether this conversation is activating or not.
Breath work, always so important, so helpful in recentering. Dr. Garcia, as a way of getting us all on the same page and offering broader context to this conversation, when we talk about Latinas specifically and mental health, what are some of the most common health issues and the common challenges that we run into?
That's a really good question. So I'll speak more to the mental health ones because that's the ones that I'm more aware of. But definitely there's a lot of the issues of depression and anxiety. First Gen have a whole set of situations that could be looked at so many different lenses, so many worries, so many concerns. There's generational trauma, there's ancestral healing as well. So in general, it depends on the lens on how we look at it. And I know we are also going to speak about language in a bit, but the way that I see it is there's a lot of struggling, that a lot of it has been passed on, and also with the current situations, oppression, colonization, and so many other systems of oppression that continue to impact us and continue to put us in a situation of a survival, fight or flight or freeze or fawn responses, and so many others.
Dr. Garcia, you laid that out exactly as I want to have this conversation, that there's both a conversation we need to have about what it is we can do for ourselves as individuals to protect our space and our mental health, and also this conversation about systems and structures and how we need to begin to reckon with those in order to help not just ourselves, but our communities at large. You brought up this issue of language, and so I'm going to start with you, but then I actually want to get everybody in on this question. There's work to do around stigma and mental health, period. And then there is the unique work that needs to happen within our own communities, right? Families that don't want to talk about mental health, families that see challenges or struggles with mental health as a form of weakness. How do we begin to build the language to have these conversations with the people we love?
I would say starting with the language that we normally speak. A lot of times, and I have this teacher, Milagro Phillips, that I really love about racism and healing racism, that she spoke a lot about that. There's always going to be a new way of saying it and the proper way. And sometimes we get so caught up about what is the proper way that we forget to really work on what is the essence behind it. So going back to basics, how is the family speaking about it? Like I know in Puerto Rico, we talk about nervios, we talk about, sometimes we use ansiosa, like I'm anxious, but we talk a lot about I'm nervous, estoy nerviosa. So going back to basic and how the family speak about it, and then how to use that language of what is already out there, and then maybe, to start having that conversation, building that trust of listening, really validating, so then the person feels comfortable or trust enough to then use those, bigger of mental health and all this, or, recommending them to seek out. So I would start with basics. How is being spoken, or how is it being felt? A lot of time is like, I feel this way, a lot of sensations in the Latinx community. So speaking to that.
Ayana, how have you learned to speak about this for yourself with people you care about?
It has been a journey, needless to say. I am one of the few in my family who actually seeks therapy and mental health services. And so what I've done is really translating the tools that my own therapists have given me and try to have those conversations with my family. Most importantly, it's, trying to translate, like Dr. Garcia said, is, when I'm nerviosa, like she says, these are the feelings that come up for me. And these are the things that happen, this is my reaction. This is how my nervous system is reacting to the situation. I've learned to sometimes take a pause, right? Not always in the moment. My family is still very Dominican and hot-blooded, and sometimes in the moment can be too soon to address something. So always giving myself the beat, and it's okay to sit on it for a second and then come back and say, hey, I really want to talk about what happened here, and tell me how you were feeling, and give them the space to tell me their perspective, instead of just assuming that they were, had ill intentions.
Adriana, how do we have the conversation specifically, not just about what we're going through, but about our desire to seek care, to talk to someone else about what it is we're going through?
Yeah, I think, within the family system, it's really important to notice your sense of safety. How safe do you feel having these conversations with people? Because I think social media can bring about a lot of techniques and encourage us to, talk about it, bring it up, right? But we're not always safe to bring it up. And so I think it's about finding your community and who you're safe to speak to about your mental health. It doesn't always have to be the biological family, but I think as long as we are talking about it, and regardless of who it is, there will always be stigma around mental health in some capacity. So I like to invite the approach of curiosity and making sure that it's very two-way. So we're asking the other person about, what are your views about mental health? What are your views about therapy? What are your views about medication? And not also in a like interrogating type of way, but just genuinely compassionately curious about their perception, so that you also know where are they at during the time of that conversation. It isn't going to be a one-time conversation with the people that you care about. It's going to be multiple conversations about this, and also sharing your perspective up to the level where you feel safe, of course. So not always disclosing everything, that we maybe talk about in therapy, but just the bits and pieces that you want to open the door to.
Robin, I want to admit to you that I am a life coaching school dropout. So I have so much reverence for the work that you do. And one of the things that I have found helpful in talking with my own life coach about is this idea of preparing for those conversations, of not just sort of allowing these moments to always happen spontaneously, to sometimes those of us who like to have some sense of control also having a plan and some preparation for how we're going to have those conversations with people we love. I wonder how you coach your clients when it comes to having difficult conversations.
Sometimes it's just talking, just honoring that they're there, right? In the same way we all care about representation. Our motto is you can't be what you can't see, but we can never change what we don't talk about, right? And it's so much is just what we simply don't talk about. And maybe to ourselves, maybe we're scared to admit these things, we're feeling this way. I don't feel like making dinner for my kids. And oftentimes what I find in my clients is that they have two feelings, their first feeling, and then maybe a shame or a way they're supposed to be about that feeling. Does that make sense? And so what I try to do is try to quiet the second voice, because I feel like that's just, I'm not sure what that is. That's society, that's susto, that's somebody sort of saying it's not okay. And we started this conversation saying it's okay. So I try to give them space to be safe within themselves, to say, you know what, admit to yourself, I'm feeling this. I don't need to have it all together. We're trained a lot of times to be leaders in our families. We just are, because and I'm gonna make some generalizations, but a lot of times maybe we're the ones that had to translate at the doctor's office. So we had to advocate. We're the first ones to go to college. We're the first. And so we feel this real responsibility to always be strong and shepherd the way. And I'm holding the light for other people. And it's hard to shoulder all of that. And so I feel you know what, just do what you can. Take it easy, come back to yourself, right? Come back, to how you feel, and begin to trust what your body is telling you. I love so much that we talked about breath work, because I feel like oftentimes the body knows quicker than the mind. And so the body will tell you, I don't know, I don't want to share that with that person. That doesn't feel safe. It's not right. I wanted to, but no. So I feel like really honoring the way that you feel, trusting the way that your instincts and your body will give you more direction on your sort of next right step.
I love that. And it's so interesting to me as someone who's second gen, how so many of those traits get passed on, even when you don't have the direct experience of needing to be the one who translates or the one who's always in charge, that still somehow gets layered and transposed onto our experience. Dr. Garcia, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of seeking out a mental health professional and your advice for people who are watching or listening about finding someone who gets it and is the right fit.
I wanted to first say how to validate the concerns of looking for a mental health professional. It was built in a oppressive system. The social work, profession, the psychology profession, all those were built in an oppressive to keep those oppressed and identify who they needed. So I think it's important because a lot of times when we're trying to get out of that, we just dismiss that. And there's this inner knowing, kind of like what Robin was saying, that our bodies are feeling, So there's that. So then there are a lot of mental health professionals that are doing the work, that are here to support you. So it's finding the right fit. So it's not to let that be like, okay, then I'm not going to trust anyone. I don't usually go to traditional Western medicine, but sometimes I do for certain things. So it's kind of like, how can you find someone that can be helpful? And I am a psychologist, and at the same time, I think there's many ways of healing. I would definitely recommend mental health if that is for you. And look, Adriana here has an amazing directory for Latinx communities. There's many other directories as well. You can ask around. I think right now in social media, you can also get, for some people it's a fake account, but you can get a little bit more of a sense of someone. But the idea here is to look for help and listen to what your body and your intuition is guiding you, which help, and then ask around. When you ask, you can receive. So that's what I would say. But mental health professionals and the ones that are doing the work, they have a lot of tools that can be really helpful and can get you to a certain place with support and faster. And I don't like using sometimes faster, but can get you to a place in clarity because we have the tools and we have the training. So I would definitely say, seek that out and ask around, and also trust that if you feel that that person is not for you, to not continue, because we're not built. Even though I specialize in this, I'm not for everyone. I have this particular group of people that I'm work better with. So also finding a right fit and knowing that that might be a journey. So it's not going to be like, okay, I found someone, I'm going to call them and schedule a session and it's going to work out. Maybe, but it might not. And if that is not a right fit, to not be like, okay, that's it, I tried it, because there's many of us.
Right. It's sort of the cyclical nature of being a person who might go to therapy because you are conflict averse and then not want to break up with your therapist, even though they're not the right fit. Adriana, I want to talk a little bit. This is your bread and butter. Talk to me about why culturally competent care matters. And I know that's sort of a wonky phrase, so what we mean when we say that, and then the resources that are out there for someone who is looking to find someone who's the right fit.
Yeah. And so with that, I think, we are seeking someone that's culturally affirming, right? Someone that is open to culture and connection, because I think what we have found, since also our field, the marriage and family therapist field, is 80% white. So what we have found is that a lot of therapists, historically within our graduate schools, like as Liliana has been speaking, Dr. Liliana, is that the systems do not teach us about culture when we are going through our training as therapists. That's a big piece that's missing, and that many of us do outside once we graduate. And so I think that's very serious. And that's why this community is very important, because we're all very dedicated to exploring various cultures, not just our own as well. But we do ground a lot of our work in the Latinx experiences, in which there are many unique experiences. And that's what makes it important important when we are seeking someone, with lived experiences similar to ours. And I can attest to that from a personal perspective as well. When I had a white therapist, and I just went with kind of whoever because I needed help at that time, and that was covered under my insurance. So I didn't think twice. I was just like, this is covered, this is fine, they'll be able to help me. It was an assumption. And now that I'm a therapist, I know better, and I hope that people can reflect on what it is that they are looking for, who they can feel comfortable opening up to, and giving themselves that opportunity to engage in that free consultation or a paid consultation so that they start the journey with the right fit. And at any time, communicate with them if it's not feeling right, because it's a two-way street. It's a professional relationship, right, that is being built. And so I think finding someone that's culturally affirming will ground their work and the goals, what it is that you're seeking therapy for, in the culture's lived experiences.
Certainly been true in my own experience. Robin, there was an idea shared earlier that I want to loop back to, and it's this idea of whether or not you feel safe with members of your own family, whether or not you feel safe sharing with members of your own family. And I think an idea that comes up sort of tangential to that is this idea of boundaries, learning to build boundaries, to assert boundaries, especially with family members who may not naturally honor, may even mock the idea of boundaries. How do you coach people on this idea of building boundaries that work for you?
That's so important. This is so important. And I want to hear everyone's topic, because I see that all the time, where people have boundaries. And if they don't want to do that, then that means they are acting a certain way, or they think they're too good, or, there's words that we use. Who do you think you're better than me? Or there's some sort of somehow some othering, when we declare that we just actually want to do something different, and that's hard because we want to be part of family systems, right? And so I imagine you feel that tug there. And so what I see with my clients, I practice something called curanderismo, which is a wisdom-based, earth practice. And the first path of being a curandera that I've taught for my spiritual teacher is that you must be self-important. You have to be important. You cannot help anybody if you do not help yourself. And this is a fundamental basic, right? We know this, right? You cannot give what you don't have. And so in that way, you have to be self-honoring. You have to be self-important, your rest and your care and your mental health and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. It has to be really important, even if you get feedback, from people close to you, right? And that could that's hard, right? A lot of times we talk about colonization and patriarchy, systemic racism, but sometimes we have these amongst each other, right? And so I think it's really important that we set those healthy boundaries. And so I try to honor my clients by saying what you feel is important. It's important to you, and you have a right to say no. Right? This is a right that you have a right to say yes. You have a right to say no. You have a right to change your mind. You have a right to cancel. You have these rights. You have that right. And I think it's healthy for us to exercise that right. And in a weird way, we talked about breaking cycles. For me, I can just speak for me as someone who grew up as a middle kid, people pleaser, always wanted to please everybody. Me personally, setting boundaries, saying no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my time for this. I've changed my mind. I'm going to go ahead and cancel because I can't show up to that picnic because I'm just really overwhelmed. Is really hard. It's really hard. Yet I act in the next right direction, and I get there.
I have to tell you, as a fellow people pleaser, Robin, my hands are sweating at the idea of telling people no and canceling plans. So I feel you so deeply on that. And I love the idea. And I am feeling a physical response to this idea of declaring your own self-importance and the things that brings up. Ayana, I want to come back to this question of boundaries with you because you have done this work for yourself. What has it required of you to set boundaries?
Fighting my sweating hands, as Robin said that. I had the same reaction. And I think the biggest piece for me is that setting my boundaries disrupted the way that our family unit functions, and it changed my relationships. And while I was doing my self-work, family didn't realize that it was going to change the way that I related to them. And so there was that resistance. There was that, well, why are you saying no to me? And I had to find the self-respect, and I had to break away from the caretaker role that I've so often fell into with my family. And, the breaking point came when I didn't have enough to give to my own 2 children and couldn't fully show up for them. And, I realized that I didn't want to continue that cycle. And sometimes it's, some tough love and say, I know you don't understand my journey right now, but I really need to do this for me and for my kids and, for me to be okay. And I hope that at some point, one day we can come together and we kind of understand and respect each other's boundaries and journeys. But for now, maybe a little space is okay. And, there was a lot of resistance, but some folks come back and they end up, appreciating it and really understanding why I did it.
And here's the thing, Dr. Garcia, it's not just me, it's not just Robin, it's not just Ayana, it's not just every female character in Encanto who feels these pressures and these expectations. You probably talk to clients every day who have these challenges.
And myself as well. I would add into that. Like, I was listening to this and taking it also. And yes, there is this sense, and also, as for many Latinas, and for anybody that identifies as female, it is so hard, that aspect of you have to give. There's still a lot of that machismo ingrained and indoctrinated in us. And then if you're the oldest of the family, first gen, or if you're part of the family, there's that neat family that you have to give back. And I understand that was rooted in survival, because when you move to a new place or you're living in a place that is dangerous, then you stick together. That's part of, how you survive. And at the same time, then a lot of us have internalized that our worth is on how much we do and how much we give back. And that is like a prison that we're all in. And I mean, a lot of us are in. I'm counting myself. So I would say yes. And a lot of times it just takes with building that tolerance, because, a lot of times it's easy to think, oh, yes, I'm going to say no and all that. And that's great when you can get there. But it's the tolerance to managing that distress of starting to say no. So sometimes I even talked with my clients and with the people that I coach about starting to say no at things that are small. Like maybe somebody offers you something or asks you something and say no. So start building that kind of like muscle, if we want to say it. So when we are saying no to something bigger, then we already have practice.
Yeah, this idea of separating our being from our doing, such a big one for so many of us. We can't have a conversation about mental health, Latinas, our communities, without talking about suicide, especially among young Latinas. There's one report from 2018, 1 in 4 Latina high schoolers contemplated suicide. Latino youth more likely to have mental health issues than their peers. 22% have depressive symptoms, yet only 8% sought mental health services. Adriana, what do we do to help the younger members of our community, specifically our Latina sisters?
This has been such a crucial and consistent statistic for many years now. And it's actually also, there's a lot of underreported cases towards the statistic. So I just want to emphasize the seriousness of this and how important it is for us to be talking about mental health from infancy, even if we can, right? Just emphasizing self-care and community care, boundaries, all of that. And I think there's a lot of old beliefs that harm us in the present and that harm a lot of Latinas. So, for example, all the shoulds, like you should be getting good grades. You should be, working towards this. You shouldn't be talking back to me. It's all rooted in patriarchy and old beliefs that are so harmful for many of us. And so to your question, what can we do? Yes, talking and normalizing mental health in our families. A huge one is also normalizing crying. normalizing emotional responses in our households, because even when I think back in my home, when I would hear or see my mother cry, she would always say, no estoy llorando, no es nada, right? Like, but that would instill so much anxiety and fear. Like, what happened? Like, I need to know, like, I want to care for her, right? And that's a very normal response. But I think that ultimately in many of our households, that contributes to the increasing rates of anxiety and depression, and also validates that we shouldn't be speaking about our problems because there's something wrong with either us or the problems, bringing it out. We're also conditioned to believe that when we express ourselves, we are burdens. Like, or we even hear the saying, like, esas son cosas de mujeres, right? When we start talking about feelings, even for the boys in our community. And so I think that normalizing emotional responses to very stressful things and inviting conversations about feelings in the household can go such a long way. Monthly meetings, as weird as that may sound, right? Non-traditional for many of us in the community, but just monthly meetings about feelings. What am I doing that's working for you and that's not working for you, right? Whether these are parents or caregivers asking and getting feedback from their own kids, allowing the youth to tell us what it is that we do that makes them upset, and giving space to those feelings, because if we are not doing that, they're going to be doing that internally or, with other people. And it's better if, we keep them close and we know how we can improve for them. So that's one small but very important thing that we can do, is opening up that communication and normalizing. And it takes work from us. And that's why we also as adults need that community to take care of us. We shouldn't be putting our feelings on our youth.
I love that idea of really codifying it and making it a monthly thing and having the conversation, especially as a mom. It's just easy to sort of move from thing to thing to thing out of necessity and not to build in that space to talk about feelings. Dr. Urcia, on this question specifically of Latinas, suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, what should we be on the lookout for?
So important. A lot of times is saying it, but we don't want to listen, right? And that is still one of the indicators. So it's talking like, me quiero morir, like I want to kill myself, or I just don't want to be here, like talking about it. And a lot of times what we do is we dismiss it. Oh, no digas eso, don't talk about that, or that's not true, or, don't say that to God, or, all those kind of things. So listening for those. And then when somebody's saying that they're struggling, really listening, again, not dismissing, not going like, we all have issues, we all have problems. The other signs that I find are a lot of sense of hopelessness. That is a big one. So like, nothing is going to work out. I'm not going to make it. And that helplessness, nobody can help me, like I'm by myself. That a lot of time that one in particular is so sad, because it's in our culture, it's like trickle down, right? Like it's all about us. We cannot ask for help and all that. And then the other things are changing things, changes of behavior suddenly, or that you're noticing anything that they're giving away their stuff, substance use, any changes, like significant changes in sleep. There's so many different indicators of suicide, but the biggest one is talking about it, and is the one that we continue to dismiss or not believe, or even shut the person down. So I would say looking for that. And then if you are with somebody that is doing that, I think you have the hotline somewhere, but even seeking for the person that's hearing that, because it is hard. As a psychologist, when I have suicidal clients, it is still scary, and I have training and all these years of experience, but for a family member, it's very scary. So looking for help, seeking even themselves, calling the hotline, and maybe getting in a lot of those websites and those hotlines, they also have resources for family members. So getting the resources so they can provide the tools for the services, for seeking help. But I would definitely say listening, because most people are talking about it or doing behaviors, like reckless behaviors and stuff, that are kind of resembling that they don't want to be here.
Robin, Adriana brought up this idea that is very resonant for me, and I'm sure a lot of you, which is this idea of the shoulds. The way we grew up and we're told we should get straight A's, should get married, should have babies, whatever the shoulds were in your life. How do we manage those expectations? Because even though those expectations may be put on us in our youth, they follow us into our adulthood.
I think that as we grow, again, our body tells us what to do or not to do, right? I think when we start off on our journeys, like we're sort of given a map of how to be, and like you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do this, and maybe society gave this map, or even a trauma response gave you this map, right? You have this sort of map. And I think what happens is we start to realize that we actually don't want to do the things we thought we wanted to do. Maybe we want to do something different. And I think that it's healthy for us to be able to pivot, to be able to do, like, self-trust, I think, is one of the most important things that we can cultivate, right? And the way that we talked about the muscles, I think it's so important, because it's hard to discern oftentimes about what we should do or what we want to do, right? And so I think it's important for us to, for me, I get really quiet, right? I center time for getting really quiet and listening. You know, like I'll ask myself like the question if I'm making a decision and I'm feeling conflicted about it. Like I'll ask the question and I'll do some breath work, right? To like actually get really quiet. And I'll just sort of see what the body, right? Like, how am I feeling in my body? Is it more peaceful? If it's easing more peace, I'm going to move in that direction. If it's causing me more like angst, even though I think I'm supposed to do it, then I'm going to like maybe just take it one step at a time. And we can do these things really slow, because a lot of times we're really breaking habits, we're breaking cycles, we're becoming new people. And this doesn't happen overnight. And so I think being able to cultivate that self-trust that we talked about is, I want to do this, I don't want to do this, you follow that. And it begins to get stronger and stronger. So you have a stronger internal sense of self. And I think then that's really important. And so when you get any pushback from whoever, if it's your family or society at large, you're able to stand more rooted and say, I hear you, I get that. Like maybe me saying no to you is causing you to feel a lot of ways, but I can hold that, and I can hold what is true for me. I can hold both, right? You know, and so I just think that the listening to the body, the getting quiet, the keeping it simple is really important. Some of these things don't have to be so elaborate. It's just like simple moments of trusting yourself and seeing where you can go on the next right move.
And to your point, it is a practice, one that requires doing it over and over again in order to build that muscle. I promised that in addition to talking about what we can each do to advocate for ourselves, which is so critically important, I would also talk a little bit about systems and structures and the ways in which so many of these systems and structures were not built with us in mind or have been built to keep us out. Ayana, from your perch, I wonder how you look at that question, and we talk about mental health, Latinas, and advocacy, how we advocate not just for ourselves, but for our communities at large.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that we have to change the entire world when we are asked this question, or what we can do for our communities. But I got really overwhelmed when I thought about that. And I'm like, what can I do in my immediate world that can make a small change? With me being in HR, I really have the ability to influence workplace policy and different systems, and, you know, really keeping diverse workforce in place and what we can do to retain people, and also making the space for mental health in the workplace. If it's traditionally taboo to say, I'm having a day, or I just don't feel myself, and people aren't necessarily trained to have those conversations when they're in those spaces. And that's where I have found that I can use the expertise that I already have to also advocate for things that are important to me, which is including mental health and talking about it, right? Like, not everyone is necessarily in this space all of the time and not necessarily thinking about it, whereas, you know, offer different tidbits. Well, did you know that this person may have other things going on, and maybe they just need to take a day off, or maybe there are external factors, you know, things are happening in the world that impact the way that they feel and they can't show up 100%. And just offering perspective, I think that's the biggest piece, is where not everyone can walk in our shoes, and it's not our job to educate everyone, but it is, you know, at least something that we can offer for them to take on their own and to really connect the dots. And that way we can slowly start changing some of the big systemic issues where we have more people who are understanding the different perspectives instead of just the systems that exist the way they are.
Adriana, I welcome your thoughts generally on this question about systems and structures and advocating for our communities, and specifically the work that you have done to familiarize all of us with this idea of decolonizing mental health.
Absolutely. Big question too. But I think something that stands out is being able to ask ourselves, and something I ask myself is, what do I have capacity for? Because as Ayana was mentioning, it's like we see so much need and it stresses us out. We can feel it in our bodies. And that's what leads us to want to take action. And so really making sure that we hit the brakes so that we're able to take care of ourselves first before we go out into the community is crucial at any time and at all times. So I think for this, it's really noticing what, like Ayana was mentioning, I think you said it so perfectly. What is it that you have capacity to influence and to work on immediately? And so out of all of I started Latinx therapy in 2018, and there was so much frustration, because I was like, where is my community? What is happening here? People are on a wait list. This isn't fair. And so out of all of those emotions is what brought up my activism. But I'm at a point now where it does feel to be authentic that I'm stretched very thin because of everything that's been built and my drive as well to want to continue. And so I think that limiting our capacity as well so that we're not acting like an octopus, like being everywhere all at once, right? So that we're providing quality to the things that we can really dedicate time and capacity for is crucial. And that ties in with decolonizing therapy too, because the systems weren't created for us. And so we're doing our best to create our own platforms, right? Just like this one, Poderistas. And taking care of ourselves, like we can't pour from an empty cup, is crucial for decolonizing, for doing activism and advocacy, all avenues, so we can be well for our community.
Robin, what does this bring up for you, this idea of systems and structures?
I really agree with everyone saying. It's just that I feel that, we have a capitalist society, patriarchal society, that always wants us to do, go, be. And we have to be real, right? Like we have to make money. Like this is real. So I got to stay in reality. There's people out there that are, single moms and they're like, yeah, this is all great, but I've got to work, right? So I want to stay in reality with that. I just think that also sometimes that need to do more, be more. I've got to achieve more. I got to do all the things. I got to be that. And sometimes I have a really mixed feeling about social media, because it's that sort of compare and despair. You know what I mean? And it takes you away from what you know to be true. That's I always try to get people to go back to, what do you know to be true for you? Stay close to that. Start your morning practice with that. Start your intention with that, because the world sort of takes you away and tells you they want to buy you. They want to tell you there's something wrong with you. They want to fix you. And so, or they think you have to always be doing more to be more. And I think that we've been sold, like, I don't find it to be true. As I get older, I kind of want to achieve less. Like, I don't want to be famous. I just want to be happy. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be at peace. I want to just be with my kids, man. And like, just enjoy the sun. And maybe I sound like a hippie or something, but I just feel that the society really speaks to us to do more and be more. And it's an act of resistance and decolonization to say, I'm okay. I'm going to do a little bit less or a little bit what's important to me. And if that's simple, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. This is your life. This is your life, and you get to create it. And you have to set those healthy boundaries for you, because no one's going to do it for you. And it's hard.
Yeah, no, and I'm not sure I would have, going into this conversation, have thought about social media as a system or a structure, but of course it is, and it is one that we as Latinas interface with disproportionately. Dr. Garcia, as a mental health professional, what do you want to see change about the systems and the structure so that the institutions are more able to accept and be ready to provide care for our communities?
I would start with that whole definition of a system. A lot of times when we say system, we think of the system, the schools, the politics, all of that. And we forget that we as a human being, we're a system of all these organs. And then as a family, you're a system. You know, when you think of from that Bronfenbrenner theories of ecological model about different systems, we start with us, and then we go with the family unit where we grow up, then we have the community. There's different systems. So when we think of it, I also like to add that aspect of where we are. And I love how everybody was sharing a little bit of that, where we are, because it gets overwhelming and it gets us in a freeze response. It actually perpetuates what we don't want, which is the system continues, because it makes us feel like, and there has to be a right way. We talk about social media. And what I'm noticing is it's great to bring awareness, but it's also like a very righteousness that this is the way that you do the colonizing. This is the way that you do and work through the systems. And then if you don't feel like you can't, like all these things are happening while I'm having babies. I have my second one in the pandemic. And I felt so much like I'm not doing enough. Like I need to do more. I need to do more. And I keep forgetting that I am, how Robin was saying, like, I want to do less. I'm also, you know, I'm turning 40 this year, and I'm getting to that moment in life that I want to do less. I just want to be significant. And the system starts with me. I do believe all of the sacrifices that my ancestor did, they also wanted, they did those because they were thinking, survival, but also they wanted to provide a moment in time for the future generations to enjoy life as well, come back to the sweetness of life. So I also like to have that balance of me coming to that sweetness and having that rest. I love the nap ministry. I think that's the name in Instagram. And coming back to me and resting, because that's also providing that rest and repair that is needed. So when I have more time, and I'm even changing the system by parenting. That is a big one, but also not the pressure of, like being super the change maker and breaking all the generational patterns. That is so much pressure. And then if you have a bad day with everything that's going on, then you feel like you're like failing at that. So it's kind of that balance of, putting what we want to do and also taking our needs and remembering that we are making changes, even by ourselves, even by the people that we interact. And those people will become the system, because the system needs people to work, in the institutions. So the more that we do our individual as well work and we interact with those systems will continue to evolve. And of course, there's other ways, but I'm just speaking for myself as a psychologist with little ones in the pandemic and all that. At the moment, I'm focusing more on those small systems and in my therapy and with my kids and with my neighbors, with the people that I interact. And that it's also important.
The system starts with me. I cannot imagine a more perfect note to end in. Robin, Ayana, Adriana, Dr. Garcia, thank you all so much for sharing your time and your expertise. Poderistas, we hope you found this discussion helpful. We hope you walk away with some tools and resources that you can use. And before we leave and go back to our day-to-day, please stay tuned for our final segment.
Hi, Poderistas. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Linda.
And I'm Alejandro.
And this is my partner, Alejandro. I am from Oaxaca, Mexico. Soy zapoteca. Le pertenezco a los Valles Centrales in Oaxaca, Mexico. And I'm so honored that you guys have me today to play music. I've been a danza azteca danzante for around 10 years, and that's where I picked up all these ancestral instruments, music, wind instruments, and I'm really excited to have you guys and to show you guys a little bit of how our music is used in our culture. It's used in different ways. It's used religiously, it's used socially, and it's also used in psychological warfare. And I'll go a little bit into detail as to how that works. Our music helps us with anxiety, with stress, with mental health illnesses. It helps us practice mindful meditation a lot of the time, especially when the COVID-19 pandemic started, when we all felt that anxiety, that pressure of being stuck inside. This was our little escape. I am so glad that I get to play something for you guys today. If you guys want to close your eyes and just breathe and just relax and practice mindful meditation, what is it that you hear in that moment? Do you hear a sonata? Do you hear a jaguar? Do you hear a bird? We are very in tune with our elements. We are very in tune with our sounds, with our animals. And I hope that this music could bring you some sort of peace, whatever it is you need in that moment. I know that we work very hard, that we tend to forget about our mental health. And it's so important how little steps could go a long way. How something as simple as listening to these sounds and closing your eyes and practicing breathing could literally set you up for the whole rest of the day. I'm really excited. And I'm gonna play something for you guys, and then I'll go over some of the instruments with you guys. So like I said, we do use this music religiously, socially, and other ways. But I hope that today it touched your heart, it touched your mind, it touched your soul, whatever it is. And I hope that you released or inhaled some of the things that you don't need, some of the things that you do need for that day. I hope it recharged you. I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to show you guys a little bit of our music, but also our cultura, our traditions, which is super important for us to continue to show to the world and pass down to our future generations. Thank you so much. Do you want to say anything? Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope our music helped you guys. Thank you.
Bye, y'all. When you're a creator, you definitely get a lot of negativity that comes your way.
Trolls happen, but negativity doesn't get us anywhere.
Pinterest Creator Code is a step towards a better space. It's like an oath.
With this new standard, you're asking people to consider kindness.
When you share your joy, it sparks others to tap into theirs.
Let's call it vibes. Let's just call it vibes.
You'll own it. I don't feel like there's any other social media platforms advocating for mental well-being like Pinterest.
When a platform is able to put boundaries, then you sort of know if you're in the right place.
A kind community definitely encourages me to be so much more expressive.
To inspire others is such a fantastic privilege.
Well, Creator Code is a recipe for a creator to be 100% themselves.
Poderistas, our hope is that you can use the tools, the information, the resources that we've shared with you today to help make an ongoing commitment to yourself and to each other. If you have not already joined our 30-day Salud y Poder challenge, it is not too late. Remember to dedicate time to your mental health and share your journey by tagging @Poderistas and using the hashtag Salud y Poder for a chance to be featured, and look out for details about how you can win some prizes. We wish you Salud y Poder for all of us, not just during Mental Health Awareness Month, but always. Thanks for being with us.